If you are going to come forward in front of the board tonight and give testimony or statements, I ask you to stand and raise your right hand. I swear to tell the whole truth, so help me God. Thank you. Within my opening comments, I'm going to go over welcome to the Auburn Township Board of Zoning Appeals. I will remind you that the official record of this proceeding are the minutes kept by Ms. Jane Hardy, and everything else is supplemental to that. With that, I'm going to read the BZA statement. The BZA is a quasi-judicial body, and as such, its role is similar to a judge in a court case. The board will hear evidence and testimony that is factual and will make decisions based upon the facts which are presented. The rules are set forth in the resolution and principles of law. The Ohio Revised Code, Section 519.13, requires that any township that has adopted a zoning resolution, which Auburn Township has, appointed a 5-member board of zoning appeals and 2 alternates. This board is empowered to hear and decide appeals and to authorize variances for the strict terms of the zoning resolution where the variance will not be contrary to the public interest and where, due to special conditions, a literal enforcement of the resolution will result in an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulties. The BZA is also permitted to authorize variances where the spirit and intent of zoning is upheld and substantial justice will be done. With this being said, the board's proceedings are relatively informal, but in order to conduct an orderly meeting and allow all parties of interest, mainly contiguous property owners or their legal representatives, the opportunity to present evidence, certain procedures need to be followed. All interested parties must be sworn in. The applicant will be asked to present evidence to support the requested appeal. The board will ask questions, and then all interested parties, contiguous property owners, may present evidence concerning the appeal and ask questions regarding previously presented evidence. It is the applicant's burden to produce evidence to support the application. The board will not make the applicant's case for them. In order to prepare appropriate meeting minutes, each person who speaks will need to state for the record his or her full name and address. The meeting may be continued by either the applicant or the board. The board must base their decisions upon facts and not on expressions of concern or non-factual matters. The action of the BZA does not become final until 30 days after the date of the meeting that the minutes were approved. You'll have to excuse me the first time as the vice chair. It's going to take me a minute to get my game together. We're not going to do all the go right to new business. Okay, I'm just going to read right into new business. BZA 1901B, an appeal requesting a variance submitted by Alan P. Weilacher for DWSK Holdings from Auburn Township Zoning Resolution Article 4A.04D, prohibited uses. Any use not specifically listed in this resolution shall not be permitted. For proposed prohibited use of a septic cleaning company and a portable restroom rental company to be located at 11484 Washington Street in Auburn Township, Ohio 44023 in a B1A zoning district. In our schedule for there you go, R2. Make your first change. Mr. Urlacher, are you representing yourself?
Weilacher, yes.
Weilacher, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I have a handout for everybody. We can walk through that. As we mentioned, I have a contingent contract for the building to be sold to Munn Septic. And I have Mike Scolaris with me, he's the owner. If you go to tab 1, I figured the easiest way to do this kind of to bring the property to you and the building to you. If you go to tab 1, you'll see this map.
Jeff, do you want to follow along?
That's currently the structure layout of the property. The changes proposed would be the highlighted areas the 6-foot wood fence on the west side of the property. Across the front, up to the drive, a gate on the drive. Then a 6-foot wood fence on the east side of the property. The mounds are already there in the back. And also a gate on the east side of the property. In addition to that, if you go to tab 2, shows the east side of the property where there's no fence. That would be run along that point until the mounds. You go to tab 3, that's the northeast corner. And actually, this is a former employee's trailer. It does a nice job of giving you an idea of the height of that mound. That mound would have pine trees planted on top of it. And if you flip the next page, you can see the house in the corner. That house is considerably at a lower grade. And if you shot a grade over that mound, you can see, pardon? On 3. Second page on 3. Yeah. So not only do we have the mounds, there would be pine trees on top of that. You go to tab 5 is the northwest corner. Same situation, you have new mounds up there. You can see the house off to the right, and pine trees would be on top of that. So the idea is, if you go to the original tab 1, the objective here is to completely privatize the entire property from the outside looking in. From the front on Washington, from the west from Messenger, from the north where there's the development back there, and then on the east, we're very little on the east, but it'd still be there. Well, the northeast is the corner where the development is. So the property would be improved. When we bought it, it was a blight. It was an abandoned home, and I built this beautiful building, greatly improved it. I think if Mike does what he plans on doing, it would greatly improve that property. 1 extra notch. It would be paved, fully fenced in. You'd have 8 or 10 guys. Mike will address that. How many are working here in the community? I think it would be an improvement to the way it looks right now. Mike's here for questions.
Before we address Mike, Frank, can you go over district uses for B1A, Schedule 4A, 4A and R2? What uses can we have in that for?
Well, it's basically a retail district with and/or living, it's a living quarters must be contingent with a business district or a business. And as far as R2 goes, that's residential, 175-foot frontage, 2 acres. Residential subdivisions.
So in reference to the residential districts that abuts to the north, which
Yes.
was in place first?
The business district was in place first.
Okay.
The business district has existed there since 1948. Since the original zoning was done in Auburn. Now, it has changed from B1 to B1A, and B1A is a little more restrictive than B1, which is what it used to be for many years. In B1, for instance, you are allowed single-family dwellings to be built in 1.5 acres of land. Keep in mind that this district is also sewer.
what was the last part?
It's a sewer district, it has a centralized sewer.
Mr. Weilacher, can I ask you a couple questions
Sure.
as we get going? How long has this been on the market?
5 months.
5 months? What is, who currently occupies?
No, well, we got Kellerman Landscaping back there.
And that's all that's in there now?
Well, actually, Absolute Septic is parking the truck in there. As a favor.
Parking a truck?
Yeah.
And what businesses have been conducted out of there?
They're basically landscaping. I've had a variety of landscapers in there.
They're currently in there now?
Just one. Steve was originally an owner.
Right.
Any excavating currently going on?
Now I sold everything.
So this is strictly just landscaping? Trees, mulch, lawn?
Yeah.
You're just storing that septic truck in there? They're not utilizing
Well,
it every day?
She's, from what I understand, winding that business down. She said it's gonna be temporary, so I'm not 100% sure what her status is. I don't know if she's coming or going, honestly. I'm doing her a favor at this point. It's one truck.
It's just parked there.
Well, it'll leave periodically. I don't know the volume of business or, but it's not, you know, she's looking for a place to go. In the short line, it's, if you can stay there for me too. She's looking elsewhere.
Is that a similar type of business that your operation would be operating?
A decent portion of it. I mean, everybody knows Lund Septic, it's been around forever out here. I've owned it since 2011 from Mike Moon, okay? You know, the trucks, we currently operate in Aurora, Manaway Township. I've been there for 15 years. There's houses across the street from me. We've never had any problems or complaints. In addition to that, I rent, because we've outgrown, that's why I'm looking to move. We've outgrown my initial location, I'm renting another location around the corner. The trucks, because of the cold nature of the winter, the trucks are inside, you know, especially in the winter months. So, you know, I don't know what Absolute does, but, you know, the trucks leave in the morning, they go about their business, you know, the waste and stuff is disposed of. At Bedford or Cleveland, we don't warehouse, we don't store waste on property. So the trucks are basically just no different than any other commercial vehicle. We keep them inside to keep them warm so the valves don't freeze. So it's very similar to that's what she's doing there, storing trucks. I just have more of them.
Well, that would be, as part of our packet, we were given your agreement, 2013. And there's nothing in here about septic. This is, in fact, it was strictly stated that you weren't gonna allow any septic work out of there.
Honestly, I don't recall that, and I wasn't involved in that whole process. I came in after Kellerman went out.
Well, okay, but still,
I don't have a lease with her, she's there, but she was in the process of unwinding the business, so I'm like, okay.
so out of the goodness of your heart, you're allowing her to,
No, she's
basically-
paying. No, she's paying.
paying you.
Yeah,
How long has she been there?
less than a year, around a year.
Was she gonna, if you weren't gonna sell the property, was she gonna continue to be
She
there?
told me
Ron?
she had the business sold,
Okay.
and then all of a sudden it changed.
Is she here?
No.
There's usually a truck cleanout sign out front. What does that mean?
What?
There's a truck cleanout sign, there was out there for a while?
That was probably 3 or 4 years ago. Chagrin Valley Paving bring the grindings there. And piling up out back, and Frank said we couldn't do that, so we stopped doing it.
Is that what the mounds are currently?
No, that's dirt.
All dirt? So there's gonna be no septic storage on the facility?
When I mean storage, no, we don't do it at a current facility. I mean, we pump, if I'm not saying there's never a time when we come back, it's 8 o'clock at night on an emergency, that we don't have waste on the truck, but it's never disposed of, it's never aerated there, it goes to the dump or land application over where Mike Munn used to run at the corner, I mean, he's familiar with that. So, you know, there'd be no change to what I've currently been doing. I have a second location out on Route 322 where we did similar type of landscaping with mounds and trees that are fronted, what road is it? Fortney Road and Mayfield Road. There's a steel building there because of all the traffic on Mayfield Road. It wasn't even required. We had our big fast-growing white pines put there. You can't even see that my business is there anymore. We don't have a sign. The only reason I tell you that is I was the one that suggested that we do the trees because, you know, you start with 8 or 9 footers, they expand pretty quick. It gets taller than any fencing we could ever put up and fills out real nice and you really can't see through it. You know, and the second portion of that obviously is my portable restroom business, which has been referenced to. You know, obviously, I'm sure the concern is that they're unsightly, would be one. I've heard it before, or that they stink because people have gone to concerts or parks or whatever. But, you know, the fact remains is we use chemicals and deodorizers that are non-hazardous, okay? That the 99% of them are pumped and cleaned on location, wherever that may be. So if they're at a construction site or a party or whatever, okay? It's the same type of vehicles or trucks that are used in septic, just on a smaller scale, okay? So once again, we don't discharge or store waste on property. All of that waste goes to Bedford Heights Wastewater Treatment Plant. We've been a customer there for 20 years and have an impeccable record. We've had, so, you know, as far as the, you know, the front gates, you know, initially I was saying wood, but probably we were thinking the metal kind with the privacy slats that are taller. Okay, so nothing would be visible from the road. And the concern of the odor, there is no concern. Anybody can come to my property anytime, unless they stick their head right in something. They're not gonna, whether you walk through my parking lot or you came to my office, you would not know it's any different than any other business, and that's a fact.
How many portable units would you think you'd be storing there?
Well, I own 2,500,
Okay.
but if they're 2,500 there, I'm out of business, so I couldn't store there. So, I have on now, even in the dead of winter, 1,100, 1,200, okay. So this is our slow season, okay, so if you went over there now, they're all ready for the spring as soon as the weather breaks. But once we hit full season, I mean, 80 to 90% of them are out constant, because it's seasonal, it's a seasonal business. And many of them never come back to the yard. They may go out March 1st and a construction site would finish up, they get on a truck and we redeliver it to a new construction site. So if you're asking how many I own that much, but at any one time, it's a portion of them that are on site, in all fairness. And they come back and they're sanitized and then they're stacked, ready to go out again and loaded up on trucks.
What's the process of sanitizing?
We use dish soap like you wash your dishes, you know, car brush. We have a pressure washer that we can pressure wash if we want to clean the roofs or whatever. But to disinfect them, I mean the seats and stuff, we have Lysol and stuff like that. But I mean if I'm cleaning off the dirt off the side and stuff, it's regular soap and water and elbow grease. That's what we. There's no easy way to do it.
How is the discharge from that area?
What do you mean? When I rinse soap.
Well, when you bring these in, obviously they have some residual.
Those are all in the tank. I mean, there's no residual on the exterior. We don't clean the inside of the tank.
And then you open them up, pressure spray them out, clean them, is that what, then everything just goes on the ground.
You mean soap and water? Yes, soap and water. Yes. There's no hazardous chemical. We have MSDS youth who've been visited by everybody. It's no different than washing your car and rinsing it on there.
How tall are they?
7 feet maybe.
A little bit different than washing my car.
Well, it's the same product you wash your car. I know I'm implying, I guess what you're getting at is am I dumping waste on there, which I think that's not the implication. What I'm saying is you asked me how I wash them, and that is how we wash them. We wash them with the same brushes that you wash your car with, and we use soap in 5-gallon What's the brand we use?
Palm olive
Palm olive.
with Lysol.
That's what we use.
And just hose them down and into the ground it goes.
Yeah, the waste goes actually inside the tank. The waste that you would think is human waste, it's inside the tank still, it never comes out. And it's pumped out by a truck, so it's inside the truck.
Do you wash that inside? Do you wash that?
Yeah, but
inside
then we
the
pump it
tank?
out. It stays inside the tank.
When do you wash the inside of the toilet out? The actual, where the waste
Tank?
sits? Yeah, the tank.
It's pumped out.
Yeah, so it's pumped out, then what do you do?
And then it's dry, and when, I mean, if you wanna hear my whole service, if we're.
No, you pump it out, you can't get every drop of it, you can't get every little,
Right, are we sopping up with a rag now? What we're doing is taking 5 gallons of a recharged fresh water with the blue chemical that everybody sees in there, which is a deodorizer, and we dump it in there. We make sure that there's no debris in there. If somebody threw a can in or whatever, we throw it in the garbage. But other than that, we're not washing the inside of that tank, if that's what you're asking. That is
Yeah.
not part of our cleaning
it's
process.
not part of the
Well,
thing.
because people shouldn't be sticking their hands in there, so, you know, you can't make them perfect, right? So there's no way to get in there with a brush, we're not gonna ask, well, I'm not gonna do it, I'm not gonna ask my employees to do that. So that's not part of our cleaning process, everything to the surface is disinfected and cleaned and sanitized.
How much, so you said you have multiple facilities, obviously, I've been by your
I
work
have-
out
I have-
here.
I have a real small one up in Orwell, I think it's Orwell mailing address, correct, because we cover Ashtabula.
So how many units would you physically think would be maximum on site here?
You can go over, I mean, I didn't bring any pictures.
No, but I'm just trying to get an
I
idea.
mean, right now, I mean, maybe 1,000, 1,000, maybe 4x4. I mean, let's put it this way, they will all fit behind this existing building stacked up that you wouldn't see them without any of these fences. That's the ironic thing, because they get stacked real tight. So if I was to take all my units and put it, if you weren't there, and I park them right behind here, without me putting up a fence, you wouldn't see them. So, you know, because this is a deep property, and they don't take up a lot of space. And once they go out in another 60 days, there's nothing there. I mean, honestly.
But then they come back in December, or November.
So, yeah, that's correct. Like I said, if you went there right now, this would be the peak heat amount you would see on my property. You'd see how they're stacked up, and they're ready to go, and you could walk around and stick your head in and do whatever, and everybody's welcome for a visit. But there's and I have a teeny little lot. I have a teeny amount of space compared to what's here. And we store them all with no problem.
I think you just answered this, but you didn't bring any pictures of your current location?
I did not. Well, first of all, my current location has we have no fencing up, it's not required, so I would think, with the exception of you guys maybe wanting to see, you know, if there's an odor, how they're currently stacked and what my boundaries are would be irrelevant to this because it's not required. And it's never been asked in that area from my neighbors or anything for that matter.
Do you know what the EPA requirements are on commercial property for their storage of septic waste, or there is none? Do you have any requirements at your other properties now that, as a business?
Who currently inspects the property? I mean,
We have
so the
OSHA come
EPA,
out, we have the fire department come out once in a while. I mean, if somebody would come out and there'd be a problem, maybe they'd come out and inspect it, but we haven't had any.
so the Ohio EPA doesn't come out. That's not another realm.
I mean, we're not
The
dumping things in
usages,
creek
right.
or anything, so, I mean, I guess there are bad people in the world that have dumped things where they're not supposed to, and I'm sure they get involved, but that's not how I operate, so I don't have that issue. I mean, to me, this is a beautiful location, next to the freeway. I mean, I don't think a bank or any other use is gonna be used for this kind of building. It's used to store trucks, I mean, that's what it's designed for. And my trucks might be different than a dump truck, but the fact remains, it has a nice office. I have more than 8 employees. We range anywhere from 15 to 20, I have full-time office girls. So there's a nice office here. They all live somewhat close. And, you know, I mean, it made sense to me that I could pave the front, you know, put up the barriers and make it a nice location for not only my business, but the area. So, you know, that was the extent of why I progressed here.
Board, any other questions?
What's the time of your operation? When do you start in the morning, when you come back, unless it's an emergency, understood?
Our office hours are 8 to 5, you can call. My phone never shuts off, so that I'm not there all the time. The guys who leave in the morning, in the summer, they start a little earlier, probably 6, they roll out. The porta potty guys, my septic guys start between 7 and 8. And they usually work till the job is done.
Frank, you were here when they did this last time in 2013, on the property, right? And there were several restrictions about plants and trees and.
Right.
Have they lived up to their side
Well,
of the
they've
bargain?
done the mound, it's not totally complete, there's no trees on it, but they do have the mound, and they have graded off the back. They have kept at least a 50-foot buffer between their back parking lot and the property line, which is, incidentally, the back part of that lot is residential. We did have an issue with some light issues, which was addressed and taken care of, although, in retrospect, getting back to it, if I took a light meter and stood at the property line, the light would not be in, never would have been against our zoning. In other words, it was less than what would be measured to be called illegal or intrusive. And I mean, there's been some issues. There was a party. I remember Mr. Weilacker's son Danny, he was a young man, had a pretty wild party, and there were some fireworks and stuff. And they have been accused multiple times of discharging firearms and so forth on the property, and the sheriff investigated, and lo and behold, it wasn't them. It was somebody up on Messenger Road, but they got accused of it. And my phone rang several times. This phone rang. And it was investigated, and it was documented by the sheriff's department that the shooting did not take place there. Other than the night they had the big party, I have had no issues. Other than, like I said, we've talked about the lighting several times, and I believe that's all been taken care of.
The only issue we didn't address was from the original, because I looked at the original when it was presented here, when I wasn't part of it. And there were some orchards. Steve Kellerman talked about planting.
Right.
We bring it back to the original, and I bought him out and decided not to plant apple trees.
Gentlemen, okay? I'm gonna open up the floor now to contiguous property owners first, please. Remember, I'm gonna ask you to state your name and your address.
James Rendell, I'm an attorney on behalf of Dr. Shalkowski, who's a contiguous landowner. Shalkowski, if you wish to give me your address.
Yes. 11525 Lancaster Drive.
Thanks, sir.
We'd like an opportunity to ask a few questions.
Let me ask, so you're the one property owner that physically abuts this?
Mr. Shalkowski is physically above the property, yes.
These questions are directed to us?
Mr.
Or directed to?
Mr. Weilacher, were you a member of the LLC that owns this property when the property was purchased?
No,
All right, when the property was purchased, do you know what was on the property?
an old house.
And after the old house, the company took out a variance to do the current use of the property? Is it,
I don't,
Well, I think it goes to a certain point, I know.
Yes, I second this.
since this is a official meeting, you're taking questions from an attorney representing one of the landowners. If you would like, you don't have an attorney with you at this point. If you would like to have legal representation with you to help you answer these questions, you know, that could be, you know, you could do that.
Yeah, I guess I'll go to the point where I think if I don't want to answer, then I'll stop.
That was your call.
Yeah, sometimes we can do that and sometimes we can't do
But if it
that.
gets to the point where I'm comfortable answering, I'm not going to answer, period.
Understood.
So,
Just want
if
to make
I
sure
can
you
answer it
understood.
versus spending $350 an hour, I'd rather
Yeah,
answer.
I understand. I just want to make sure you understood that that right is available to you.
Yes, go
Okay.
ahead, fully.
All right. I'm sorry, Mr. Grindle, go ahead.
Mr. Walker, what are you currently using the property for?
We're not there anymore. AWD Excavating is no longer operating.
Is there a reason that you could not continue to operate an excavating business on the property?
My son decided he wanted to do something different with his life and now owns a charter fishing business in Key West.
But another excavating company could come in and use the property, correct?
Yes.
And is there any other business that the property is used for, or could be used for?
Landscaping,
So you could operate a landscaping business from there right now?
correct.
Is there anything that makes this particular piece of property different from any other properties that share the zoning in the area?
I'm not sure what you mean.
I mean, is your property the same as the other properties in the business district? No unique characteristics?
Well, it's similar to the Eclipse, 2 doors down, got a building and land.
Actually, we have no further questions.
What firm are you with?
Lynn and Grindel?
Would you happen to have a card with you?
I do not. I can provide one for you tomorrow if you wish.
Where's your office located?
Cincinnati.
Would anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name's Rick Liston. My address is 1165 Colchester Lane. My background is safety and health. I'm a certified industrial hygienist that deals with chemical exposure. If you want, you can look up my number. It's 8507 DIH. My question is dealing with chemicals. For a disinfectant to work, it has to be a chemical, first of all. So that's chemicals. Second of all, human waste has biological organisms. How's the stormwater going to be dealt with? Because I have a well, like everybody else in the neighborhood. How's the disinfectants, how's the chemicals going to be guaranteed not to get down into the water?
Yeah, I'm not prepared to answer that question because I haven't done a site survey or, I'm not prepared to answer that, I don't have an answer.
One question I have, you indicated you were planning on painting some of the front of this, correct?
Well, I thought, yeah, I mean, yes, it's solid
But
surface.
the back portion from the fencing back, that would remain gravel?
Well, I actually considered paving, I just haven't got a quote on it to know how expensive it would, ideally would be, for me, just regardless, not related to that question, but from keeping things clean and neat and tight, it's better for me to be on a solid surface. So in theory, could if I was to solid surface that, could I put no different than an oil catch basin in there for runoff? I'm sure it could be done. I don't know how to do it, I have not that, but I'm sure it's no different than if you had to have some kind of, oil basin in a garage, so I'm sure there is a way to do it. I mean, but once again, if I'm using Lysol in your house, I think people use it every day, and I don't think people are concerned with safety.
Kind of like washing my car.
I like washing it.
Can I
Oversimplify, I don't know, but I'm just saying, it's the same type of product that was used, that's the implication.
I have another question about that. The dose makes it poison. The amount of Lysol I use in my house is different than the amount of Lysol you use in your toilets. And because of that, that can make it more toxic, and it can make it toxic to my groundwater because of the volume you're using would be surprised if the concentration is the same. But one other fact I had was you said you would store 1,000 toilets here. Those are not dried, right? They have, you said 5 gallons of liquid in it.
No, they're stored dry.
Okay, so what's the vapor density of your waste?
I have no idea.
I'll tell you, it's heavier than air. Hydrogen sulfide's heavier than air. So you got rotten egg smell, it's heavier than air. Our houses are below this, so air current comes, it's coming down to our place. It's not going up like hydrogen. So the smell of hydrogen sulfide, can you tell me the detection level of that?
I'm not qualified.
Because here's my comment. You said it's up to the nose. Hydrogen sulfide is less than a part per million. You can smell it with your nose. So just because I can smell a chemical with my nose doesn't mean it's safe. Because let me tell you this. Hydrogen sulfide has the Olin factor of fatigue. That means that I can walk into a concentration of hydrogen sulfide, I smell it, it's gone. And then what happens is, because my nose is overwhelmed, I can't smell it, and I become over-asphyxiated chemical, and now I die. That's hydrogen sulfide. So you can't rely on your nose to tell you if something's safe. It has to be quantified through air monitoring.
What's your name again?
My name's Rick Liston.
Rick, could you do us a favor in that, for the record for Jane, you claim that you're an expert.
I'm a certified industrial hygienist.
Good. Could you at least, you said you're certified, could you at least bring something that says or shows that you're certified?
Yeah.
The only reason is because a lot of people could walk in here and say, I'm an attorney, and but I know he's all right. It's just that it would be nice if we had something that just stated that for the record. I mean, if you have it filed with you, that'd be great. If a business card,
No, I can take you to the other.
that would be terrific if you could provide that for the record. That's all.
I just wanted to know, when you say it's natural, it's chemical, if you have an SDS, I mean, just irritation of the eyes or irritation of the skin under OSHA makes it a hazardous chemical. So the stuff that you use at home, you don't need an SDS for, because you're consuming it as a consumer. At a workplace, it's different. So I think there are hazardous materials being used at this property, disinfectant.
He's already stated that he uses the MSDS system. So.
We just had an ocean inspection, I mean, just for, and I've never had anyone die that's worked for me, and we've been covered for 20 years. The guys do this every day, so, just for the record, no one's died from doing my job.
No one's died from what?
Smelling or taking in vapors or any of those questions, I'm just saying, nobody is, I haven't had any issues with that. I'm not saying, he's not saying it's fact, but I'm not qualified to answer, I'm just saying we haven't had any of those issues.
Has anybody ever died as, in a boiling septic system? I'd be surprised if they haven't.
I don't know, I've never
I
had.
can tell you they have.
None of my employees have ever died from the septic system or pumping equipment. I can't speak for the other.
I would like to get this onto the minutes, because we have heard cases with Nathan's Auto Detailing down the road, and they were required to put in catch tanks, and he's washing his own trucks, not other trucks.
Well, we have a catch basin in the building.
Within the building,
In the
so,
building.
so everything's gonna be done inside?
Once again, I'm not prepared to answer that, I heard the issue, and I'm sure there's an answer, but I'm not prepared and don't have no recommendation.
How many trucks do you think you'll keep on property?
What do we own? I own some that don't haul waste, I have flatbeds, we have pickup trucks, but I probably own 20-some vehicles.
And the building can safely contain how many?
If I squeeze them, they'd probably almost all go in there, but in all fairness, a lot of them are gas, and we don't put them inside, I mean, a flatbed truck, and we store it outside because it's easy to start. It's more the diesel engines, that's the concern with the heat. But it's, I mean, once again, it's no different than Eclipse having their plow trucks or dump trucks, I mean, they look the same.
We've never had everything inside. We've had a lot of stuff out back. And same with the landscapers. Park around the back.
I was asking for my clarity, because the discussion you did put out there that the majority of the vehicles will be kept inside, I was just wondering.
Specifically in the
I
winter.
understand,
yeah.
I got a couple diesels and I understand why the block heat are, so we don't have luxury of parking them inside.
Yeah, we tied to the sewers and there's a separator in the building itself. Isn't cheap.
And usually the requirement is that you have the ability to block off the storm drain should a spill or an accident occur. And that's probably step one of the OSHA recovery, along then going to the silt fence and the drift areas. There's a whole protocol. I'm sure you've gone through it or may go through it as we speak. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak? Yes, sir. Oh, doctor, I'm sorry, you've already introduced yourself.
I just wanted to let you know that, everybody keeps talking about the front, the front, the front. The back part is close, very, very close to my backyard. And then the fact that the mounds are not actually causing privacy. The mounds are very short. They're not tall enough that you can actually see around in corners and everything else. As far as Mr. Kinko talking about the light source is off right now. They provided it off. We asked them to turn it down, and they did not turn it down initially. But when the issue came with the fireworks, was really not fireworks, actually, it was a fire clear in the backyard. All the trees are now down. There's over 100 trees taken down, so that gives me less than 50 feet from my home. So therefore, the porta potties that everybody keeps talking about, they're in the front yard, everything is nice and pretty, the backyard is not pretty at all. It's basically, they have trailers, they had an actual livestock truck that had flies all over my backyard during a barbecue, which they used to store there. So the issue down the road, as a physician, I can tell you, if you put porta potties along that area, as the health and safety inspector, that he just said, bacteria aerosolizes. Aerosolizes means it gets into the environment. So wintertime is perfect time, there's no issue. 100-degree temperatures, a rainstorm comes over, it aerosolizes. Bacteria can be, actually viruses can be aerosolized, which is hepatitis A, Coxsackie virus, norovirus that you hear on the cruise ships and all those. So all those enteric viruses from poop and also pee can be affected, and therefore immunocompromised individuals, which during that rainstorm and during the wind, most winds that have affected us, come from their direction toward our residences on Lancaster Drive. And you can actually be in a situation that somebody's immunocompromised, like an elderly person, which we do have in the community, and children can be affected. So that is a big factor. So I concur with his information as a physician. I've been doing 29 years. I work at the Cleveland Clinic. I teach residents and medical students. So I can definitely say this is not a good situation.
Yes, ma'am.
Heidi Masnick, I live in Lancaster. I'm not an expert, I'm a mom, and this is kind of in my backyard as well. I don't want this going into my septic,
Can I have your address
if I
in
will.
Lancaster first, please?
I'm sorry?
Your address.
11585 Lancaster. I'm a mom, and I may not have all of the data to prove this, that, or the other thing, but I'm not an idiot, and I do a lot of reading. And just with a simple Google search, you can see that there are things in Palmolive and Lysol that do cause cancer. Maybe not the small amount we're using in our homes for doing the dishes, but he said 2,500 these things he has. I moved to Auburn Township because my family loves the area. We love our home. We all have beautiful neighbors, beautiful neighborhood, beautiful homes, and I don't want that just going down the septic. I just, as a mom, no. I have an asthmatic child. My oldest is in college. We were thinking about selling our house, and I'm not happy with Eclipse behind us either. You know, don't get me started on the noise that we have from that. This is just going to add to it. You know, I moved here for the peace and quiet and the beautiful neighborhood, not for this. My oldest son was like, Mom, don't sell the house. I want to come home to this home. This is home. I want it to remain our home.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
My name is Bill Noakes. I'm here to represent my mother who's out of town. She lives at 17681 Messenger Road. She's contingent on the north side and the west side. And she, because she's out of town for the winter, she just got the notification of this last week. So I don't have any facts, I just have her concerns, which are runoff, you know, it runs off both ways towards her property, to the north and these other people's, and to the west. The odors, the outside storage, which at one time was not permitted in Auburn. I don't know about now, but it is or it isn't. It's not.
The only way outdoor storage can be approved is if it's on its original plan submitted to the board and the board approves it.
Okay, well, it's not on this plan. Okay, but she has a lot of concerns, you know, the typical things, devaluation of the property, the runoff of washing these things out, which may or may not be answered. I don't know, I'm just looking out for my mom. Okay, thank
For
you.
the record, Mrs. Noakes sent a letter authorizing her son to speak on her behalf.
Yes, sir.
I have Chris Bamford, 11520 Lancaster, and I happen to be contiguous to Dr. and my good neighbor in the back. We've been here 20 years. We moved from Cleveland Heights, and when we got here, there wasn't a whole lot. The landscaper who was there, where Eclipse is now,
Wheeler.
they cut the lot probably to the property we're talking about. When that happened, the complete drainage system from the top of the hill down into our yard changed, and it's been a mess. The current property owner and the property we're talking about clear cut the entire back of the woods, which now used to be a junkyard. There were cars back there, but they were old rusty cars and probably 50 years old. All that is now clear cut and untouched. And from their backyard, it's literally to the street where you can see the open space now, which used to be all woods. So I'm not directly contiguous, but I'm right next to it, and I see what's going on. And we could, in the wintertime, or the porta potties would be extraordinarily visible from my back deck, from Chukowski's house, probably from your house as well. I assume they're bright blue and tan, or it doesn't matter. They would be very visible. I don't have any facts to support my position. Not happy with what's gone on Washington. It's really devalued our property over the last 15 years, which is a shame, but I don't want to see it get worse.
Yes, ma'am.
Darlene Deal, 11700 Lancaster Drive. So my question is, has there been a topographical survey been submitted to the board that shows how the water runoff comes off of these mounds in the property, so we know what the actual impact is to the contiguous properties? And also, we're all in wells, we all have an aquifer. And 2,500 porta potties stored, whether there's an ounce in there or 5 ounces. They're gonna leach into the ground and they're gonna affect our aquifer. That's pretty much all I have to say.
Well, to answer your first question, no, there hasn't been any
But shouldn't there?
survey or anything done to.
I mean, I've called Geogga Soil and Water. I would have thought that them and the EPA would have had some sort of weight in this whole thing, as well as OSHA. I mean, because it has something to do with the safety. So it affects our safety, it impacts the development's property values. Everything that's gone on East Washington, and I'm a big observer of what's been going on. It's impacted, and it hasn't gone up. And do you have 2,500 porta potties sitting in your backyard? I think not.
Frank, is that residence on sewer, or that's still on septic?
Pardon?
Is that the residential area behind them, is that on sewer or
No.
on septic? And how many residents are back there? Estimate.
We have 49.
I was gonna say it's about, I was gonna guess about 50.
So there's 50 septic systems in place right now.
Yep.
And Ascot has
All
47.
100%. Excuse me?
And Ascot Lane has 47.
And then there's Ascot.
Just adjacent to it. So there's nearly 100 individual septic systems in place.
But Lancaster is the street that's affected more than.
Yeah.
Correct. I know it's not some people who live in the adjacent areas, Ascot and that area, and I'm familiar with the area. But it's the cul-de-sac there at Lancaster, I think 1, 2, 3, I think there are 5 houses on the cul-de-sac that goes down. And there, I don't know, there must be another half a dozen houses on each side until you get to the opening of the place there. So that's, trying to figure out how many homes there on Lancaster. Because between Lancaster and the part that goes farther to the north, there's a wooded area that separates. And I understand there's still groundwater issues that could affect them as well. I was just trying to figure out how many people out of Lancaster are affected.
There's a creek sort of that catches the water in all parts of our cul-de-sac and goes right into the other cul-de-sac and right behind.
My name's Phil Martino, I live at 11730 Ascot Lane. I don't have any of the qualifications some of the other people have. I would just, I guess, represent Ascot as having the same concerns as Lancaster does. I understand the visual impact might be 5 homes plus 6 on either side, the groundwater concerns, the chemical concerns. We have well, I think all of that, all the issues that were brought up are no different for Ascot than they are for Lancaster. So from the non-expert point of view, my concern is the groundwater, that I don't think we'll ever know if this business goes in, we'll ever know if, it's gonna, there'll be negative impacts, we just won't know it, that's for sure. So we have no interest in that type of business being that close to Ascot Lane, just like someone who lives right behind it.
Yes, sir.
Matt Myers, excuse me, 11790 Ascot Lane. I have a couple questions for the applicant to clarify the aesthetics of the operation. I believe you had mentioned a couple times about cleaning and stacking the porta johns. Do you stack these more than one high?
No, they just stand on the ground. I say stack them, I mean, you just put them in a row, they just sit on the ground.
And when they sit on the, I didn't hear when you said earlier, how high is the porta johns?
I think there's, I don't, once again, I didn't bring the exact measurement, I'm guessing 7 feet.
7 foot. And the fence you're putting up is how high?
Well, the rear's gonna be mounded in trees, so I'm gonna guess they're gonna be 12 or 15 feet high, so I don't think they'll be visible from the rear at all, but, we initially said 6 foot on the sides and then the front, I don't know the exact, it was Auburn fence we talked to do the slats on the front, and I'm sure they can be 6, 7, 8 foot high, I mean, whatever it's gonna take.
The back mound's already 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And when the porta johns sit on the trucks coming in and out, how tall are they at that point? And will they sit on the trucks overnight or for any duration of time?
Could they sit in the truck overnight occasionally? Sure. Do they normally? No.
And the truck beds are
Normal
4 or 5 feet tall, plus another 7 or 12 feet up in the air?
They're a one-time slate body, they get to your chest.
That's all I had, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have another question. Rick Lister, you need me to see my address?
No, you're okay, Rick.
So, these porta potties, sometimes there might be food. Do your employees get the hepatitis vaccination, or are they offered that?
Is it relevant to this conversation?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
Well, my question is hepatitis is something that's in the
I'll answer it, but it's not relevant. They're offered it and it's part of our new employee sign up for the employee, but it is not relevant to this.
Hepatitis can live outside the body for more than a short period of time.
Okay, sir, we're gonna move on. You're not,
I won't think it is.
thank you. Anyone else?
We have one last thing to present. My client is presenting me with a petition signed by several of the local residents opposing this measure. Can I present?
Please, figure out this real quick. Any further questions, any clarifications? I would like to make a motion, sir.
I will make a motion to approve an appeal requesting a variance submitted by Alan P. Weilacher for DWSK Holdings from Auburn Township zoning resolution, Article 4A.04D, prohibited uses. Any use not specifically listed in this resolution shall not be permitted for a proposed prohibited use of a septic cleaning company and a portable restroom rental company to be located at 11484 Washington Street, Auburn Township, Ohio 44023, in a B1A zoning district. Oh, okay. Yeah, and dates.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote, Mr. Parker,
No.
Mr. Hogan,
No.
Mr. Stewart,
No.
Mr. Ford,
No.
Mr. Gibbons.
No.
Motion denied. Can you explain, or Brian, would you explain procedure once the minutes are approved?
I got it right
You
here.
have it.
These motions aren't official until 30 days afterwards, so we still have a 30-day window to appeal. We, as the board, as a zoning board, cannot make contingencies. The trustees can overturn us with contingencies. We cannot put contingencies on this. So until these minutes are approved, you have 30 days to appeal on top. Any questions, gentlemen?
The minutes will be approved February 12th. The appeal period is 30 days after that.
Well, that will conclude our new business. There's no need for anyone else to stay unless you have a topic to cover with us. Thank you for coming.